Welcome back to the channel, guys. A bit of breaking news for you this afternoon, and it is with regard to this BBC scandal. Obviously, we've seen senior director, of course, resign yesterday, and of course, this is a rumbling on. Trump did come out and speak out. However, we do have some breaking news with regard to Donald Trump, as he has submitted an official letter threatening legal action against the BBC after, of course, they doctored his speech. Grab your popcorn, ladies and gentlemen. It's about to heat up, and all for this. And hopefully Donald Trump, of course, does pursue legal action, because it's absolutely unacceptable. There's a lot to discuss in today's live stream. We've, of course, got Deborah, one of the individuals that was resigned/fired yesterday, coming out and saying that the BBC, to the BBC interviewer, that the BBC is unequivocally non-biased. BBC interviewer interviewing her, asking her if the BBC... you couldn't make it up. They've also issued an apology as well. So much to discuss in today's live stream. But as always, guys, please hit the like button and hit the subscribe button for more. So, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, first things first, you're seeing is the BBC chair apologised for bias scandal and sends out drastic action to save broadcaster from crisis. We'll get to that in a moment, but just see how the BBC are handling it. The chair of the BBC has apologised for an error of judgment over the editing of a speech by Donald Trump for Paranorma. What on earth constitutes as error of judgment? Literally slicing two individual things an hour apart, putting them together to incite violence. How is that an error of judgment? Absolute BS. But as you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, the breaking news is that Donald Trump has threatened to sue the BBC as broadcaster plunges deeper into crisis. The BBC have confirmed it has received a letter threatening legal action. Donald Trump has threatened legal action against the BBC amid claims the broadcaster edited a speech by the US president. The BBC confirmed that it has received a letter from the US president and will respond directly in due course. Chairman of the broadcaster, Samir Sahn, had said earlier today it had received communication from President Trump over the editing of the documentary, but not confirm he had threatened to sue. He said, "We are now considering how to reply to him." A 19-page leaked report complied with Michael Prescott, former external advisor to the BBC's editorial guidelines and standards committee, claimed the corporation edited a speech by Donald Trump in an episode of Paranormal Broadcast the week before last year's US elections. The program allegedly spliced clips, they did splice clips together from sections of the US president's speech on January 6th, 2021 to make it appear he told supporters he was going to walk to the US Capitol with them to fight like hell. Two of the BBC's most senior figures, Chief Executive of BBC News Deborah Turns and Director General Tim Davie, resigned on Sunday amid the allegations. We've already seen Trump, of course, speak out on it. He sort of issued a statement on Truth Social, but the BBC have confirmed, ladies and gentlemen, that they have received a letter threatening legal action from Donald Trump. Now, I just want to show you this bit as well quickly. Deborah on BBC Breakfast. So she comes out and says that the BBC News is not institutionally biased. Asked by a BBC reporter. You can't make this one up, can you? Have a watch of this.
I would like to say it has been the privilege of my career to serve as the CEO of BBC News and to work with our brilliant team of journalists. I stepped down over the weekend because the buck stops with me. But I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased. That's why it's the world's most trusted news provider.
Why did you fail to deal with the mistakes that were made?
And see my teams. Thank you so much.
Right, do you think that the journalists are corrupt like President Trump says? Do you think the journalists are corrupt?
Of course our journalists aren't corrupt. Our journalists are hard-working people who strive for impartiality, and I will stand by their journalism.
Is there institutional bias at the BBC?
There is no institutional bias. Mistakes are made, but there's no institutional bias.
But why weren't the mistakes dealt with on Trump, on anti-Semitism, on women's rights?
I'm sure that story will emerge, but for now I'm going to go in and see our team.
Do you think the board acted against you? Do you think the board acted against you?
This way, Deborah.
I mean, a great setup and make it look like They make it look like that way. But yeah, of course, she's came out and said that the BBC is not institutionally biased. And obviously, they know full well, we know full well that they absolutely are. Let's get on to some more reaction of this, of course. Nigel Farage just came out and spoke with regard to the BBC as well.
The BBC has been institutionally biased for decades. I well remember the Wilson report 2 decades ago, saying the BBC were not covering areas like Europe and immigration with any sense of impartiality. And you could, add on to that net zero, climate change, all their interpretation of the horrors that have happened in Gaza. And now, of course, the United States president. I spoke to the president on Friday. He just said to me, "Is this how you treat your best ally?" It's quite a powerful comment, isn't it? It's quite a powerful comment. So there's been too much going for too long. You might have noticed, Harry, that last year 500,000 people stopped paying the license fee. The year before, 500,000 people stopped paying the license fee. If the BBC doesn't now get a grip, get somebody in from the outside, somebody who has got a history and a culture of changing organizations, of turning them around, then I think what you would see within the next couple of years are many, many millions just refusing, just not wanting to have the license fee. I spoke to Nadine Dorries at some length this morning. She, of course, the former culture secretary, now a member of Reform, and she was the one trying very hard to bring some reforms in. And I rather agree with her. We need to very much slim down BBC. When it comes to entertainment, when it comes to sport, and many other areas like that, well, they should compete against everybody else for a subscription model. That's the modern world that we live in. So the license fee, as currently is, cannot survive. It is wholly unsustainable. Which, by the way, doesn't mean I don't want a BBC. I think part of our global brand, I think the BBC is important. I think BBC World Service is actually very, very important. And I think the BBC should get back to doing news, but just to doing straight news. If it can manage that, it has something of a future. If it can't manage that, frankly, it has no future at all.
So yeah, there you go. That's Nigel Farage's comments on this. I want to get a little bit more reaction, of course, on the BBC chairman's grovelling apology, so to speak, as they look to try and rebuild their reputation once again. It's in the mud right now, and it has got given the karma it deserves. But there could be more now. As I said, for those of you just tuning in, Donald Trump has, of course, threatened legal action over this whole scandal. But let's get a little bit more in terms of their apology.
Certainly is a bombshell, and the weather outside New Broadcasting House certainly dramatic, lots of rain, but perhaps the atmosphere inside New Broadcasting House just as dramatic as well, with this apology now out in the open, and lots more details in the apology underway, as we now, the BBC saying what the purpose of that edit in the panorama was. They said the purpose of editing the clip was to convey the message of the speech by President Trump on Capitol Hill on the 6th of January. They said at the time it didn't attract significant audience feedback, but the points raised by the Standards Committee at the time were passed on to BBC Panorama and the teams who make the programme. But they said with hindsight it would have been better to take more formal action. No word on what that action would have been. And since these reports have come to light that Panorama made such dramatic edits to change the meaning of what Donald Trump said, they have attracted now more than 500 complaints to the BBC. They said they'll go through them in the ordinary complaints procedure, but they have said it's prompted further reflection. And they said after reflecting, they accept the speech was edited to give the impression of a direct call for violent action. And because of that, the BBC would like to apologise for that error of judgment. Well, in terms of what action they are now going to take, well, I can tell you that the chair of the BBC, Samir Shah, has said that they are going to be appointing a new director of documentaries and long forms to hopefully stop these kinds of edits and errors from going to air, as they're seeking to regain trust amongst audiences. And the chair, in his 4-page letter to the Select Committee, said that if problems persist, we will take further actions. But of course, he was responding to Mr. Prescott's 19-page memo that was sent to BBC bosses earlier this year, which alleged systemic bias at the BBC. And responding to them, he said he takes Mr. Prescott's concerns seriously, but the implication that he uncovered stories BBC sought to bury was simply untrue. He said he accepts there are times BBC gets it wrong, and when they do, they issue a correction. But on the issues of systemic bias, well, a large proportion of that is down to BBC Arabic and their reporting of what's happening in the Israel-Gaza war. Well, I can tell you that the chairman of the BBC has said they have recently appointed an Arabic-speaking head of editorial for that channel, and they've also said that they are committed to revisiting every aspect that Mr. Prescott raised in his report, that 19-page memo detailing widespread systemic bias that he was alleging, not only when it came to reporting in Israel or reporting on Trump, but also reporting on gender issues, trans issues, and also race issues as well. And the chair of the BBC, to end his letter, said the BBC must champion impartiality, and he said he will personally ensure the BBC continues to take necessary action to ensure the BBC retains trust and confidence of the public. Well, that is increasingly important at the moment, as the BBC only have 2 years left on their current charter, as they will now seek to have the conversations to look to renew that charter. Well, that will be the job of the new Director General when they're appointed, with a number one mission to regain trust in the public.
Well, that Trump thing and the Gaza thing is just the tip of the iceberg, really. Again, we've been talking about the BBC for a very, very long time, and that the biases that they have. It's clear as day to see. And the way that they report and go about things, they need a massive, massive, massive change if they are going to regain any trust. I mean, this has been going on for decades in terms of scandal after scandal from the BBC. Probably history tells us that they probably will survive it, but no doubt, hopefully a little bit skinter if Donald Trump is, of course, going to sue them. And remember, he sued ABC News for $16 million. That was with regard to sort of manipulating Kamala Harris's answers in something. And this is far worse. This is far, far worse. And especially in the lead up to a sort of presidential, to the vote in the presidential campaign. We could see something far greater in terms of suing. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this. It'll be interesting to see how they sort of slime out of this. But of course, the whole world knows what they're all about, and certainly has, of course, been a big punch in the beak. But guys, it's been a little couple of days since I've been live streaming. I do like to engage with the audience. I hope you're all well. If you could do us a favor, hit the like button if you haven't already, guys, and subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. We're trying to get to 300,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We're about 20,000 away. So super, super exciting time. So thank you very much. James Jamison says, ABC was slicing Camilla to make her a coherent answer. Yes, that's true. They were like playing around with her answer to a question on Israel and Gaza, I believe. But yeah, that's what they did. I mean, they were manipulating, of course, and trying to make her look better at the detriment of Donald Trump. Light Sky says, hope this brings down the BBC, President Trump. You don't want to mess around with President Trump. They don't want to mess around with President Trump at all. Hugh keep his pension? I can't confirm that. I think he did. I'm not too sure. But the disgrace around Hugh Edwards anyway, the fact that he was a part of the establishment as such, a part of the BBC, which seen him not get a custodial sentence and actually got to sit at home for his jail time, is an absolute disgrace in itself. In terms of their history on harbouring the individuals and the unscrupulous characters, the demons, the predators that they've had in this organisation, just tells you everything you need to know about their morals. Cav Keelan says the BBC must go, no forgiveness. Davey says more scandals to come. Is Trump suing the bullshit broadcast cartel? Yes. Well, the BBC have confirmed that they have been threatened with legal action from Donald Trump, and that's sort of breaking news over the last sort of half an hour or so. Speaks to her own reporter about bias. Yeah, I know. It was the same thing with sort of Lisa Nandy yesterday. It only just clicked to me yesterday. Of course, we did the thing where she came on and spoke, or she was asked questions about it. But it was from a BBC reporter on the BBC news station. And they're answering the questions as if they were they're not even a part of it. And then you've got like the BBC Breakfast team interviewing the sort of former CEO who just resigned and asked her the question, is the BBC biased? And she's like, no. And then she's acting as if she doesn't know that it's the BBC, and she's like acting around as if she wants to get away. I mean, some good acting there, I suppose. But yeah, it just so happened to give a few bite sizes there as if it was some random reporter. Loved it. Crikey, is EastEnders still on? EastEnders. Jesus, is that still on? Is Billy Mitchell still on there? Phil Mitchell. My mum used to watch that when I was a kid. I think it was like 9 years old. I'm 29 now, so 20 years ago. Max Branning, I remember that. I remember that show. Is it still on? Still going? Wow. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Breaking news for those of you just tuning in. Obviously, Trump has threatened a massive lawsuit on the BBC as official letter has been submitted by the US president. He's not happy. And when Trump wants to sue people, he always wins. History tells us that. And BBC are in far more bother than ABC were. And that was 16 million that they had to pay out. So let's see. Watch this space. Let's see what happens. But guys, thank you for tuning in. Hit like, hit subscribe. We've got plenty more content coming.